Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Hey, I'm Candice Lim.
And I'm Nadira Goff, and you're listening to ICYMI.
In case you missed it.
Slate's podcast about internet culture.
And Nadira, I'm cutting to the chase because you used your journalism hat this weekend as Slate's associate culture writer because you went to the Timothée Chalamet lookalike contest in New York City. First off, are you okay? Did you survive?
I survived. I'm not okay, but I survived. I brought some audio, I took some photos, and I lived to tell the tale on this podcast today.
All right. Tell me everything. Like, literally don't leave anything out.
Okay, so it was at Washington Square Park. It started... Well, according to the viral flyer that went around the interwebs, it started at 1 p.m. So I showed up around 12:45, and there were already some Timmys there waiting to be appraised by the public. And I got to talking to some of them. One of them drove all the way from St. Louis, Missouri, which was kind of wild. One of them was convinced to go by his girlfriend, which was also kind of wild. Very bold choice of her, I must say. But yeah, so we were all just sort of like congregating. Police were slightly there, and it was a sizable crowd, but it wasn't huge. But I would say within those 15 minutes before I got there and then when the actual event started, the crowd had reached like critical mass to the point where the police, just a few minutes into the event, actually shut it down. And we couldn't really tell what was going on because there were so many people. So we were, I would say, at least 6 people deep in a crowd, right? And so we couldn't hear anything. And all of a sudden, we just see one of the Timmys dressed like Wonka holding up the trophy and walking down the street with it. And we were like, where is he going? Did he win? And so we started following him, as did everyone else. It was a mass exodus on the streets. And basically what happened was the police broke it up, so they had to move to a secondary location. And the secondary location, which was only a few blocks away in a playground, is basically where they had the whole contest. And so they had all the Timmys get up in front of a sort of makeshift stage. They did a sort of dating game-esque situation where they had all of the Timmys. Well, they chose a top 3. And of the top 3, they had them answer questions and do talents or tasks. Like they had to say a full sentence in French. And they had to answer if Timothée Chalamet would be in a Marvel movie, who would he play? The answer is he wouldn't. They all got that part wrong. And basically, one of the Wonkas ended up victorious. And I was kind of disappointed by this because he had the best costume. I will admit he had the best costume. But I came for bone structure. I came for a tight 2C curl, a scant freckle, and a Victorian nose. You know, a chiseled jawline. And it was a beautiful baby boy. I believe he was 21 or something like that. Very handsome young man. However, his face, like the structure of his face wasn't giving Timmy the way some of the other contestants were. He was just a crowd favorite because he showed up in cosplay and maybe because it was like Halloween weekend or something. I have no idea. And so I was kind of disappointed by that. But the entire situation was wild. A Timmy got arrested. Real Timmy showed up and I missed him. And that's why I'm not okay. And I don't even want to talk about it. But it was truly anything you could imagine. From one tweet had a joke about police brutality. So from police brutality to, you know, an actual celebrity sighting, it all happened. It all happened. And I've never been more happy to be alive and living in New York City. And it was beautiful and wonderful and really one of the most bizarre, insane experiences I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing. Yes.
It's so funny because you go to journalism school and they teach you to like knock door to door to find out who murdered the girl in the park. But what they really don't prepare you for is going to Washington Square Park to find multiple Timmys and interview them face to face. I mean, It's so funny how, like, everyone we love was there, right? Like, Ayanna Ishmael from Teen Vogue, EJ Dixon was there. GQ actually took really good photos.
They took great photos, yeah.
Right? And I was just kind of like, guys, journalism, it's back. Washington Post, check it.
It was being live streamed by, like, the Associated Press or something.
Yeah.
It was bananas.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to ask, did you talk to any of them? Did you get any, like, interesting quotes you maybe want to bring to the page?
Yes. So I talked to, let's start with Xander, the guy whose girlfriend convinced him to come, just because to me, he was the true winner of the competition, because to me, he was one of the few who truly most embodied Timothée Chalamet. Unfortunately, he did not win, but truly, as soon as I set eyes upon him, I was like, is this Timothée Chalamet? When was the first moment that you realized that you looked like Timothée Chalamet?
I would say I actually realized it when I actually watched one of his movies. I think the first movie I watched with him was Little Women.
Okay.
And I was like,
both was for the first one.
Yeah. I watched it on a plane. And
Nice.
So, and I was like, yeah, I kind of see it. So
Cool.
that was the first time I actually like saw it. My hair was shorter at the time too. So it
Sweet. Do you get this a lot? Is it like annoying?
No, it's not annoying. It's very flattering.
Nice.
It's very endearing.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Do you like hope to win? Or are you just here for vibes?
Yeah, no,
like,
I hope to win, of course.
Okay, and what
Yeah.
will you do if you win? Like, what's the celebration going to be?
I mean, we're going out tonight, but I guess let's blow the money on her.
I love that quote. We're going out tonight. Like, I just think it's so cute.
This did not make it into my piece for Slate, but I must say that Xander and Alia, the couple, were so sweet. Like, they were in their early 20s and very clearly in love. And every time they would compliment something about each other, you know, he would say, oh, my amazing girlfriend told me to be here. And she would say, my stunning, beautiful boyfriend looks so much like Timothée Chalamet that he has to be here. And they would just look at each other so lovingly, and it was so sweet. And so I loved them. Shout out to Xander, my true dark horse winner of the competition, who didn't win the $50 cash prize, but won my heart.
Yeah. And speaking of winners, we have to remind the people that this was a contest. This was a competition. So who won?
Well, obviously, if we're talking about the literal on paper winner, it was that kid who was dressed up like Wonka. He threw candy to the crowd. He had a whole prop. We get it. But if you really think about it, Timothée Chalamet won. Monoculture won. And surprisingly, Club Chalamet lost, because Club Chalamet, infamous Stan Twitter account that's run by a 57-year-old woman for Timothée Chalamet, she got into some drama after she incorrectly predicted that the real Timmy wouldn't show up. And when the entire internet was like, I guess she doesn't know him the way we know him, she ended up releasing an entire multi-paragraph statement about the event that says, quote, "This benefits me in ways you can't imagine," end quote. And it is so funny because, well, there's this other viral tweet going around from user at I lay eggs that basically says it all, which is, I'm going to start telling people, quote, "This benefits me in ways you can't imagine," when things go horribly wrong.
And JFK wishes he could, you know? And so that's on that. That was your weekend at a lookalike contest. Now, Nadira, what if I told you that I would actually like to play a little contest with you before we get into today's episode?
Okay, I love games.
What if I told you that probably the biggest story on the internet recently involves a country singer and his now ex, whose breakup we're hearing has produced a song. So I'm going to play the song for you. I want you to guess who is singing the song.
Okay.
Calling we went to Rockaway Beach, summer heat in Eastern Queens, and a subway ride.
Okay. We're swaying in the studio. And I will help you out. I will help you out, Nadira. I'm going to make this multiple choice. Nadira, tell me, was this song sung by Luke Bryan, Zach Bryan, or Zach Brown?
I don't. This is a perplexing situation. I'm in a quagmire, if you will, because I know I've heard all of these names separately, But when you put them together, I start to question my own intelligence. I start to question if this is real. I feel as though we're in a simulation. And yet, I will still hazard a guess. So I know what Luke Bryan sounds like because I actually really like that song, That's My Kind of Night, or whatever the song is.
Sure.
So I know what he sounds like. It's not him. Zach Brown, though I'm sort of unfamiliar with his music, I'm quite familiar with the fact that it's the Zach Brown Band, right? And I heard
smart.
one guy. And this third person, I actually know absolutely nothing about. Like, I know next to nothing about Zach Bryan. So I'm gonna guess that it's him.
Ding, ding, ding. You're extremely right. You're extremely right. And I'm so glad because on today's episode, we're talking about the drama surrounding country singer Zach Bryan and his breakup with Barstool Sports personality Brianna Chicken Fry. We'll tell you everything you need to know after the break. Whether you're listening to ICYMI at double speed or regular speed, you'd probably love to know how you can get more cash back on your credit card. Either way, we'll slow things down a bit so you don't miss anything. Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. That means with Discover, you could turn $150 cash back to $300. It pays to Discover. See terms at discover.com/credit card. This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. Hey there! If you love our podcast, then maybe you should consider subscribing to Slate Plus to immediately unlock bonus episodes. You'll access ad-free listening across all your favorite Slate podcasts, including bi-weekly bonus episodes of this show. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of our show page, or visit slate.com/ICYMI Plus to get access wherever you listen. And we're back. So Nadira, we are speaking because on October 22nd, country singer Zach Bryan announced via Instagram story that he had split with his girlfriend, Brianna Chicken Fry. And there were signs they had broken up, from alleged Raya profiles to ominous podcast comments. But if you have been on the NYC Influencer Snark subreddit or the Brianna Chicken Fry Snark subreddit, you've probably heard about this breakup many times over.
Well, as someone who is not on any of those subreddits and who doesn't really care for these people or know about these people, but who sees that you clearly care and have all of the know-how, can you explain what happened so that I don't have to look for myself and find out?
Absolutely. So let's start with Brianna Chicken Fry.
Okay. My obvious first question is that her real name? Because I'm very curious about this, and you keep saying it very seriously, like you're not laughing when you say it, and so therefore I'm very confused and very perplexed, but very curious.
It is not her real name. Brianna Chicken Fry's real name is Brianna LaPaglia, and she is the host of a few Barstool Sports podcasts. One is called Plan Brie Uncut. That is one she hosts with her lifelong best friend, Grace O'Malley. And the other is the BFFs podcast that she hosts with Dave Portnoy and Josh Richards. You probably know Portnoy. He is the very often controversial founder of Barstool Sports, or also because that one time Taylor Swift gave him a personal thank you note last week. Let's just say that Chicken Fry and Portnoy are very close friends. And I would like to mention, for some reason, that the BFFs podcast, their big sponsor is Raising Cane's. And I don't know. I just find that very funny.
Okay, here's where I would like to say, oh, as if it makes sense, but it really doesn't. So how did we get from La Paglia to chicken fry?
Yeah, so Brie's past life includes going a little viral on Vine, where she posted a video comparing her legs to chicken fries. You know, the really skinny chicken product-like things that they sell at Burger King.
That's actually really funny. Yeah, okay, I see. Okay, so this is somewhat confusing because you say Brianna chicken fry, and I'm like, wait, I might be country light. You know, like I watch Nashville and I like Chris Stapleton, but I don't actually know that much. But again, I know it's the Zac Brown band, and I'm pretty sure they have a song called Chicken Fried, right?
Exactly. See, this is all happening while McDonald's, Quarter Pounders, they're getting hit with E. coli. Chicken is up, yet chicken fry is down. We are complicating the situation.
Okay, so back to Brianna. What's her deal? What's her claim to fame? Why should I know her?
So the lore begins with Brianna as like this 25-year-old podcaster from Massachusetts. You know, she went to college in Ohio. She was a swimmer diver. In 2020, she got kind of TikTok famous. She has this account. It's at I Hate Brianna Chicken Fry. And she currently has more than 1.6 million followers. But back then, in 2020, you know, she was just kind of like posting stuff about college life. She kind of looks like Gabby Hanna, to be honest. And there's just this frat girl vibe to her. I wanted to show you a TikTok she posted back in September of 2020 to just really illustrate the ethos of her content.
Do you guys eat guys' asses? Like, do girls or like gay guys, like, do you eat guys' asses? Or is that, like, are you scared? I don't know. I like simply just need to know. Thumbs up for ass eat, thumbs down for no ass eat.
Okay, I completely see why she would be headhunted by Barstool Sports.
Exactly. So this account, it takes off. She drops out of college. And in August of 2020, she starts hosting the podcast Plan Brie Uncut with her best friend Grace. And look, I was looking at her like first episodes from that time, and she's talking about stuff like Kanye West's social media breakdown, which will come up later. Things like pissing your pants or that time Brianna thought she had diabetes. I don't know if I would make a direct comparison to Call Her Daddy just yet. But let's just say that this was a very personality-forward podcast, and that personality was Brianna.
Not which will come up later. Okay, so, and I do somewhat hate to ask this, but how did we get to the whole Dave Portnoy part of the story? Like, where does he enter? What's going on there?
Yeah, so after going viral on TikTok, Barstool reaches out and they put together the first episode of Portnoy, Brianna, and Josh Richards' podcast, the BFFs podcast. It drops in October of 2020, and I think at that point it was kind of like an interview show, kind of like the Vile Files, you know, the pod from The Bachelor guy, Nick Vile. They bring in a guest, but a lot of listeners are banking on the chemistry of these three main co-hosts. And so their first guests are like Bryce Hall, Alex Cooper, Jake Paul, Cody Ko, Noel Miller, the gang.
Yes. All of the persons of interest of like half of my explainers for Slate.com. I'm very familiar. Okay, so Brianna's podcasting, posting on TikTok, and this is all before Zach enters the picture. So what's her reputation at this time?
So I don't know if Brianna has ever been like well-liked on the internet, because even before Zach Bryan, I think there has always been this divisiveness that just kind of follows any woman who decides to associate with Barstool Sports. It's this idea of like, I understand you stand for a woman's right to the one-night stand, but like, are you a real feminist if you work for Dave Portnoy? And there is kind of this point when those girls get so big that they're like, I'm so rich, who cares if I'm a feminist? And with Brianna, I can tell you that her snark subreddit, so this is like a subreddit that pretty much every influencer gets once they reach herd immunity, where every post and comment, podcast appearance is picked apart, and people usually just say like mean things about them. And this is usually moderated by people who are followers but not fans. Anyway, this specific snark subreddit about her did not start until July 2023, so actually post Zach Bryan. But I went on the subreddit NYC Influencers Snark because at some point, Brianna moves from Ohio to New York City, probably for Barstool Sports stuff. And I am seeing posts there as early as May 2022 asking if there's any tea on her. Some things I found were like, met her at a bar in Kips Bay and she was super nice. I used to really enjoy her content, but it's sad to see her and Grace going down such a downward spiral. They both have substance abuse issues. Oh, okay. And then stuff like, I just think her touring around college campuses during the pandemic is extremely tone deaf. I believe she even went out while she had COVID. Correct me if I'm wrong. Her tour just rubs me the wrong way.
Oh, so she was touring. I mean, are we talking comedian? Are we talking like Tana Mojo? Because when I hear that, I'm thinking of a sort of Hannah Berner type, that girl from Summer House who now has a Netflix special.
Yeah, I think this one was more of like a let's take the podcast on tour for a live show thing. But speaking of tours, I think this is the right time to bring in Zach Bryan, because a lot of her controversies actually come up after they start dating.
Okay, sure, fine, I guess. Tell me more about Zach Bryan.
So Zach Bryan is 28 years old, and from my purview, he's probably one of the biggest country stars that's really popped in the last few years. You know, when I think of young, new, big country stars, it's like him and Morgan Wallen.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach Bryan's last few projects in particular have gotten a lot of critical acclaim. You know, he won a Grammy for his Casey Musgraves collab. Ironically, he has chosen not to submit for the Grammys for 2025, but Zach's whole thing is that he came from a military family, and he himself was in the Navy until late 2021. And while on active duty, he wrote music, he recorded it, posted on YouTube. And in 2019, he got some attention with this song called Heading South. And it's literally so low key. I mean, it's just a vertical video of him on a guitar, I think sitting on a log, singing a song that he wrote about being a kid in the Navy.
Was a boy who was a dreamer, and he flew so high and proud, in a world full of people out to cut his young ass down. No one ever understood a single word he said.
Do you have any thoughts so far? So far.
Okay, my first impression of that video is that he needs some sunscreen.
Oh!
I'm
Super
sort of
goop?
worried about the redness of his face, but I'm actually surprised that I haven't seen that. So tell me more about this video.
Yeah, this YouTube video has more than 30 million views, and it is probably his biggest hit until 2022 when he puts out the song Something in the Orange, which is critically, commercially successful. It gets his first Grammy nom. But here's the thing, Nadira, you obviously know country music. What else do you think he sings about?
Okay, I'm guessing trucks. I'm guessing beer and or whiskey. I'm guessing denim shorts. I'm guessing heartbreak. I'm guessing trucks, if I didn't say that. I'm guessing boots. And I'm guessing, like, outside of trucks, somehow there's always just more, like, industrial machinery brought up. So maybe more industrial machinery. Those are my guesses.
Yeah, and he has some of that. But I think maybe what takes him out of the regular spectrum of country's oeuvre is just that in the background of all of this, in 2016, Zach's mom passed away, and he named his first album after her in 2019. It's called Deanne. He then gets signed to a major label and drops his LP American Heartbreak in 2022, and that breaks a record for the most global streams of a country album in a 24-hour period. Just to get an idea of, like, critically where we are, you know, John Caramonica for the New York Times wrote that this album was, quote, a refreshingly unpretentious album with songs that take the shortest path from feeling to words while also deploying some alarmingly lovely turns of phrase.
I'm actually really shocked that I didn't know this about him. I like to think of myself as someone who is pretty aware of what's going on in music, even if it's genres that I don't necessarily follow or am that in love with myself. But I really can't say that I knew that he was that popular. And I also really can't say that I even knew who he was, because I'm realizing after all these clips that this whole time I've been visually confusing him with Sam Hunt when I would see him, and then auditorily confusing him with the name Luke Bryan when people would say his name. Like, I know Luke Bryan makes That's My Kind of Night, but he was never sort of his own entity to me. So you're saying that 2022 was kind of his big moment?
Yeah. And I wonder if it's because I kind of get why people like him. You know, I think critics have praised his music because he writes about divorce and his mom's passing and his time in the Navy. And I think that vulnerability, especially against the Morgan Wallen controversies and that very shallow, like, last night we let the liquor talk lyricism, it kind of started to fill this gap between country music and what mainstream bigger outlets usually define as worth critical acclaim.
That makes sense. Let's backtrack a little bit to divorce.
Yes.
How did we get from divorce to Brianna Chicken Fry? Like, what happened in between there?
So Zach was married to a woman named Elizabeth. He literally named an album after her, and they both actually served in the Navy. They got married in 2020, and they did divorce 8 months later.
Okay, see, here we go again with this, because someone was telling me in another conversation about country stars that the one who's been divorced a lot is Zach Brown of Zach Brown Band of Chicken Fried Song fame. And so this timeline is a little confusing. You know, like, what was in the marital water? What was happening? Who got divorced when? What's happening?
Yeah, no, you're right, because Zach Brown has been divorced twice in the last 6 years. Great for him. Back to Zach Bryan. We are in July 2021. Zach has left the Navy. He's trying to bank off the viral success of that YouTube hit, and he gets big in 2022 with that album. Then, July 2023, rumors start to circulate on TikTok, Reddit, and Facebook that Zach Bryan and Brianna Chicken Fry are dating. Someone posts a photo of Brianna in the background of a photo of Zach with his boys, and the alleged story is that she, flew out to hang out with him. And the reason people are confused is because not only was Brianna publicly dating someone as recently as 2 weeks prior, but also because Zach was also dating someone at the same time, or so we thought.
Wait, when you say his boys, do you mean his children or his friends?
Oh, his friends. Good distinction. His friends, his bros.
Okay, I had to clear that one up one time for the one time. Okay. Please say more. Who are these alleged previous partners? Was cheating involved given the timeline? Do we even know what happened?
So good question. Okay, Brianna, as we know, had a boyfriend named Joey. She would talk about him on her various podcasts. Later, we find out that she and Joey actually broke up maybe a few weeks prior to the rumors of her and Zach hanging out. But the question everyone is asking is, was there overlap? And this word becomes a huge piece of lore in the Brianna Chicken Fry universe, some may say the BCU, because she once went on Theo Von's podcast and said that all of her relationships have overlap, but that overlapping is not the same as cheating.
I have a lot of thoughts. I can see how in some cases overlapping is not the same as cheating, but I can also see how in many cases it is the same. Mm-hmm. And this is just kind of like the word situationship all over again. And the fact that she said that all of her relationships have overlaps is very interesting to me. So Candice, I'm going to ask you to put on your little detective's cap, magnifying glass, tobacco pipe, and tell me what really happened.
So here's the timeline that Reddit has put together. Brianna and Zach Bryan claim they met at the Academy of Country Music Awards on May 11th, 2023. Zach, on May 31st, posts on socials that he and his girlfriend Debbie, or Deborah, broke up, quote, a week and a half ago, so around May 23rd. On June 23rd, Brianna goes to a Zach Bryan concert, and I remember this being a big deal on Reddit because of two things. Number one, Brianna later confirms that Zach actually slid into her DMs right after the BFFs podcast did this episode. It was called Each the Rich Except Zach Bryan. That was literally the title of it. And that was posted on June 27th. Second, she claims that she did not meet up with Zach the night of the concert, but she claims Zach saw her, visually saw her, and a few days later she broke up with her boyfriend Joey. But all of this is speculation until later in July when the rumors are finally addressed and Brianna says on an episode of Plan, Bri, Uncut, I've been hanging out with a guy named Zach. And it's case closed.
Okay, first off, I've decided that ICYMI will be the podcast where I, too, hard launch my relationship with Aaron Pierre, Charles Melton, Dev Patel, and or Dylan O'Brien. Yes, I said and/or. So look out for that. But second, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop because, I just know how this ends, but I want to know how we get from podcast hard launch to Instagram story breakup.
Mm-hmm. And I will fill in the gaps for you. But first, let's take a break. When we come back, Nadira and I will dissect the mess that has occurred since Zach and Brianna broke up and ask why her followers were praying for the downfall of this relationship since day one. All that and more after the break. This episode is brought to you by Sax.com. There's joy in finding the perfect gift for the ones you love, but it can be a challenge. Sax.com's holiday gift guide makes it easy. Whether you're surprising your hard-to-shop for sister with a Chloe bracelet bag or gifting your partner a memorable scent from Gucci, at Sax.com, there's holiday inspiration for every personality on your list. I love using Sax.com because it is clean, easy to use, and so fun to scroll around for inspiration. I'm currently on the hunt for a really nice winter coat, and I'm also looking to put together some fun holiday looks, especially with all these Christmas parties coming around the corner. Now, thankfully, Sax has me covered because they have everything my friends have been begging me for, from Le Labo candles to Jo Malone London perfumes. And while I'm there, I might as well throw in these really cute Michael Kors boots I've been dying to gift myself. Sax.com's hand-picked guide can help take the stress out of the holidays. Add instant cheer to your home with some bright decor. Find gifts guaranteed to bring joy to everyone this holiday season at Sax.com. That's Sax.com for the ultimate holiday gift guide and all the shopping inspiration you need. Whether you're listening to ICYMI at double speed or regular speed, you'd probably love to know how you can get more cash back on your credit card. Either way, we'll slow things down a bit so you don't miss anything. Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. That means with Discover, you could turn $150 cash back to $300. It pays to Discover. See terms at discover.com/credit card. This episode is brought to you by Sax.com. There's joy in finding the perfect gift for the ones you love, but it can be a challenge. Sax.com's holiday gift guide makes it easy. Whether you're surprising your hard-to-shop for sister with a Chloe bracelet bag or gifting your partner a memorable scent from Gucci, at Sax.com, there's holiday inspiration for every personality on your list. I love using Sax.com because it is clean, easy to use, and so fun to scroll around for inspiration. I'm currently on the hunt for a really nice winter coat, and I'm also looking to put together some fun holiday looks, especially with all these Christmas parties coming around the corner. Now, thankfully, Sax has me covered because they have everything my friends have been begging me for, from Le Labo candles to Jo Malone London perfumes. And while I'm there, I might as well throw in these really cute Michael Kors boots I've been dying to gift myself. Sax.com's hand-picked guide can help take the stress out of the holidays. Add instant cheer to your home with some bright decor. Find gifts guaranteed to bring joy to everyone this holiday season at Sax.com. That's Sax.com for the ultimate holiday gift guide and all the shopping inspiration you need. And we're back.
Okay, so before the break, you told me that Zach and Brianna are official, and they're so official that they end up going to the 2024 Grammys together. And I'd like to ask how people are responding to their hard launch at this point, because they got together in what seems like a supremely messy way, or at least very close timelines. And the internet, it never forgets.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, but not surprising, is that Zach Bryan's career has obviously been going up this steady ramp, right? Like, he was in the Grammys conversation until he decided not to submit. He's getting a 7.0 on Pitchfork. Like, he is climbing the charts. While Brianna's follower count may be going up, I mentioned that her snark page started around July 2023, which is ironically when rumors about her and Zach Bryan also started. And I think the magnification of the relationship is two-sided. You know, more eyes are on Zach, and it is translating into like beneficial career attention. But for Brianna, she is like the ant that is getting burned by the magnifying glass. You know, things are just getting harder and nastier and meaner for her.
We've seen this before. A less famous woman dates a very famous man. I'm thinking Chris Evans and his now wife, Alba Baptista, and how nasty Reddit and Twitter became after that news broke. Like, she was just an actress in a Netflix show, Warrior Nun, and all of a sudden, Faux Moi was filled with death threats aimed at her. So before I feign surprise, though I'd never say the behavior is warranted, I would like to ask if there's a reason for the negative attention towards Brianna, or if it's just people who are jealous. Like, do they have a sort of cause that they are unifying behind, or are they just spewing hate?
I want to say yes, because after she goes public with Zach, there are a few controversies that happen. Let's start with August 2024. Would you believe that Miss Brianna has posts that resurface on the internet, and the Twitter dogs find screenshots of Brianna using the N-word in 2 Instagram comments from like nearly a decade ago?
Wow. Shock. Surprise. I am agog. I am aghast. Did anyone confirm if they were real? If so, did Brianna apologize for them?
So there is an Instagram page called T Talk that posts screenshots of these comments, and they kind of seemingly confirm them. You know, page 6, they pick it up. But so far, I don't think Brianna has apologized or even like confirmed they exist. So that's that. The other thing is that people are very suspicious about Brianna's relationship with her best friend Grace, her podcast co-host, because earlier this year, Brianna announced that she will be hosting solo episodes. And Grace later shared that they had been having like a little bit of a tiff lately. Things have changed between them. And Reddit has overwhelmingly been on Grace's side because they're kind of pushing this narrative that Brianna was one of those girls who like gets a new boyfriend, specifically a famous boyfriend, and she dumps her girlfriends and kind of just like rests her entire identity on the new guy. And like, it happens to all of us.
I would like to say that I'd never dump you, Candice, but it will happen to me and Charles Melton. So there is that.
Yeah. And I get it. I've seen May December. I get it. But it gets worse when in October of 2024, people accuse Brianna of victim blaming as Grace talks about her sexual assault on a podcast.
Okay, I wasn't expecting this turn at all. What happened?
Yeah, so there is this episode where Grace is talking about going to Atlantic City. Grace is a stand-up comedian, so she's like, I'm going back there for a show. And I hope it ends better than the last time I was there because something bad happened to me that shaped me as a woman. And Grace is talking about this with like strong inferences to a possible assault. And this is Brianna's response.
Well, you know, when you're 16, you just don't really know anything. And when you're 16, girls, if you're 16 listening to this, or play this for your daughter if you have a 16-year-old daughter, when you're 16 and maybe your mom brings you to Atlantic City, maybe you girls shouldn't hang out with the divorced men at the bar. Maybe you should go find other 16-year-olds. Maybe you shouldn't hang around older men because that's really scary and wrong. And they will always take advantage of you because that's just what life is. And men are scary. So let's stay away because, you know, it sounds so fun and cool in the moment. But then when you grow up, you look back on those experiences scary and horrific. So stay away from older men and hang out with people your age. That's how life should be. Be a good 16-year-old, not do what we did.
And Grace tries to kind of clarify to these theoretical 16-year-olds that Brianna's speaking to that it is not your fault. And yet Brianna kind of doubles down that you shouldn't be a bad 16-year-old. She's placing this blame on like the teenager of the situation instead of the creeps that Grace had a bad experience with. And at some point, Grace kind of exclaims, "It wasn't my fault." And Brianna still pushes on.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And this episode of this podcast alone seems to be like an especially controversial moment in the chicken fry universe because people also got mad that Brianna talked about the Menendez brothers. She said they should stay in jail even though they were abused. It got so bad that Zach Bryan even defended her in the IG comments. But above everything else, I think people feel like she has always been very braggy and like smug about this relationship. You know, there is this clip I want to show you. It's from her podcast that maybe shows how this all sounded to people.
Zach Bryan, okay? I just want people to be realistic here. He is a famous musician, pretty much a rock star. He gets out of a relationship. He's been in a relationship forever. He was in a long-term relationship before his last relationship. He goes, yeah, I'm gonna be fucking.
He's gonna be fucking.
I'm single. He told me, and he's so transparent, which is like, I don't even want to hear it. But he's like, you want me to just tell you everything? I'm like, sure. So he's like, yeah, I got on Raya. I started fucking. And I was talking to a bunch of girls. We were just hooking up, whatever. It wasn't even like a bunch of girls, but it was like a few girls.
By the way, the context of this clip is that there were rumors that Zach had allegedly spread an STD. So this is Brianna's response to that, saying like, oh, it's okay for him because, you know, he's a rock star. So that, plus people being like, well, you lose them how you get them, because he allegedly cheated on his girlfriend with Brianna. Brianna allegedly overlaps with her boyfriend on him. It's very what goes around comes around. And if there's anything the internet can agree on, it's that a cheater's gonna cheat.
Okay, well, we don't have enough time to unpack all of that, so I will just cut to and say, how does this quote-unquote fairy tale end?
So, for the past month or so, there have been rumors going around that Zach and Brianna have broken up. You know, she is debunking it on her podcast. She's like posting cryptic handwritten note or poetry prose on her IG story. Another thing that happens is that weeks prior to these rumors swirling, Zach makes headlines because he tweets, Eagles greater than symbol Chiefs, Kanye greater than symbol Taylor, who's with me. And he apologizes for it, saying he was drunk, he wasn't coming for Taylor Swift, he's been, quote, going through a hard time in my own life, and I think I was projecting a little. And actually, speaking of hard times, a year ago, like literally prior to this tweet, he got arrested in Oklahoma on an obstruction of investigation charge. He put out a statement on social media saying he had an incident with the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. He got arrested. There was like a mugshot of him floating around. And I bring this up because I do think we are learning two things about Zach Bryan here. One, September seems to be a tough time for him. But two, he loves an IG story statement. Because on October 22nd, he announces the breakup between himself and Brianna on IG stories. And to me, his statement is actually kind of alarming, but maybe I should have you read it.
Sure, but before I do, I would like to comment on two things.
Yeah.
One, go Birds, as an Eagles fan myself. Two, obstruction of investigation is so, it's not rare, but it's so unexpected. Yeah. I was expecting one of the more commonly worded or more common charges. And so that was very surprising and interesting. Anyway, back to his statement. He writes, addressing something. Brianna and me have broken up with each other, and I respect and love her with every ounce of my heart. She has loved me unconditionally for a very long time, and for that, I'll always thank her. I have had an incredibly hard year personally and struggled through some pretty severe things. I thought it would be beneficial for both of us to go our separate ways. I am not perfect and never will be. Please respect Brianna's privacy and space in this, and if you have it in your heart, mine too. With everything I am, and to anyone I let down, I am sorry. I try my best in everything. I failed people that love me, and mostly myself.
So the statement is kind of interesting to me because I don't think I've actually ever seen such a public celebrity breakup statement like this. There's someone kind of saying like, I broke up with her, but also really putting a lot of kind of self-inflicted, maybe not blame, but guilt onto it, which I find interesting. But here's the other thing. Reddit has been comparing this IG Stories breakup statement to the one he used when he broke up with his last girlfriend, Debbie. In both, he says he's releasing the statement with transparency, with respect. Those are words that come up. He tells his fans to have respect for both Debbie and Brianna. And before we get to Debbie's response to literally his breakup with Brianna, obviously everyone's wondering if Brianna herself will respond. And she goes on IG Stories and says that she was blindsided and will be taking time to heal privately.
Okay, for someone whose job is yapping and who's been very open about her relationship and her partner's past sex life in the context of claims or allegations about spreading STDs, I find it really hard to believe that that's all she said.
And that's because that is not all she said, okay? Because she then posts this almost 4-minute YouTube video from the floor of her bathroom. It's called Love You Guys, I'll Be Back Soon. And let's play a little bit of it.
How can you give every ounce of yourself to someone and then be discarded of in a few days?
You had a very visceral reaction, Indira. What are you thinking?
Everything you've shown me of her so far has been vulnerable in the sense that it's Barstool Sports vulnerable, right, where it's very sort of lewd, but in a more sex positive way. It's, it's vulnerable about sex and about relationships, but it's not vulnerable emotionally. And that was the first time that you showed me something of Brianna where she didn't seem to just sort of shrug it all off and be cool as a cucumber, where she really was having some serious emotions through the camera. And it was such a tonal shift from everything that I have seen her do before that I honestly wasn't expecting it. So that was my reaction.
Yeah. I think you're gleaning the right things. You know, she says she's been crying for 5 days. She says that she's going to talk about the details later, but she says that ultimately she was blindsided. And it sounds like she wasn't blindsided by the breakup itself, but instead she didn't know Zach Bryan was going to post that breakup statement. And since then, you know, she's been posting her dog on social media. She's taking a break from her podcast obligations. Zach's ex-girlfriend Debbie posted a TikTok saying she doesn't find gratification from other women hurting, which people interpret as her talking about Brianna. But I think the sentiment from the Brianna Chicken Fry Snark subreddit is that the war is over. I mean, there is like a breakup mega thread with more than 1,200 comments. People are firing off jokes about how the Zach Bryan combo is buying you a Bronco, a house in your home state, then giving you 30 minutes before he posts an IG story about your breakup, because apparently he's done that to other girls before.
Ooh, that doesn't seem good for him. Mm-hmm. Can I ask, is anyone on his side? Like, his fans seem to actually like him the way Brianna's might not. So what's going on with his support?
I mean, I just checked the Zach Bryan subreddit, and interestingly, it takes quite a few scrolls to get to any post mentioning Brianna. And so I do think, in general, Zach Bryan's career will be fine, right? His music fans probably see this as like the personal life section of his Wikipedia. They close the tab, they move on. But I have a hunch that the reason this breakup became such a breaking topic on Reddit is because days before he posted the IG story statement, someone allegedly took recent screenshots of Zach on Raya. And it's him. Like, Raya, you have to literally, like, confirm it is you. There was also someone who posted DMs between Zach and a girl who invited him out, and he was like, let's keep this under wraps, ha ha ha, which is sus, because all of this was allegedly happening while he was publicly with Brianna. And I think the reason I'm fascinated by this breakup and all of this is because I don't follow either of these people. But I had known for a while that Reddit was like praying for the breakup and demise of these two people, and it reminded me of the way the internet still to this day is praying for the divorce of Sam Taylor Johnson and Aaron Taylor Johnson, you know?
I mean, yes and no. I do get it. I think that the sort of complication around the Sam Taylor Johnson and Aaron Taylor Johnson thing is the age difference that's squicky to a lot of people. I think what sort of annoys me about this, or at least from what I'm hearing, is that, and again, I'm not really one to defend her, but when Taylor Swift was a teen and she wrote all of those songs about breaking up with boys, she got a lot of criticism from legitimate adult men and critics who really took offense at the fact that she was dating. And it wasn't even like she was turning around and the next day she would be with a new boy. And yet, I feel like the same thing still happens to people like Sabrina Carpenter, who had to write a whole song about how the Olivia Rodrigo drama didn't actually overlap. But, you know, like how there was space there. And it still happens to women today. And here Zach Bryan is back on Raya after breaking up with his girlfriend, presumably days later, or at the very least, publicly not yet breaking up with her, but on Raya. And he's just fine. You know, he doesn't get this criticism of constantly being in a relationship or swiftly jumping into another relationship after ending his previous one. And he shouldn't get it. It's not my point that he should get criticism about it. But the double standard there is so glaringly obvious.
Yeah. There's a reason why you go on Zach Bryan's subreddit, the word overlap is like nowhere to be found. You go on Brianna's Snark subreddit, it's everywhere to be found. And I wonder, you know, this relationship has kind of been doomed from the beginning, not only because of their individual track records and reputations online, but also because I think it is hard to see clearly when everyone is rooting for your downfall. when you claim to be in the happiest relationship of your life. You're flying on the private jet. You're touring with your man. And here you are on the internet seeing all these people claiming to be your followers, but they're like hating everything you do or say or think. And it can make you defensive, I assume. And it may explain why Brianna was so adamant about like defending the STD thing, debunking the cheating and breakup rumors, talking about him constantly. But for me, I think I've just been trying to parse out like, okay, so the internet got what they wanted. They broke up. How much of this celebration is warranted? Like, what does it do to an online figure when people are openly happy about their demise? And how much guilt should the internet feel for, like, popping champagne at someone's breakup?
I mean, it's never good. Like, there's never really a justification for it. Again, I think in the Taylor Johnson scenario, the question is one about a sort of alleged inappropriate age difference, right? And I think that that is sort of a more real life explanation as to why there's so much stringent pushback. And we're sort of seeing a resurgence of that in conversations about how young Beyonce was when her and Jay-Z started dating, right? And I think that those conversations are conversations that deserve nuance. They don't often get nuance, but they deserve nuance, and they actually have more of a place to be had as conversations and as discourse. Mm-hmm. This is just like people decided they didn't like this girl and then decided that they would, like you were saying, just root for her downfall. And that is just always going to be negative and toxic when people can't necessarily back up their reasons for hating someone online. Yeah. It's just trolling. And I would imagine that if I was famous, and if I was particularly famous in a way that my fame was intrinsically intertwined with my public reception on social media and the internet, the way hers is and his isn't, that I would really start to take it to heart. Because the truth is, he can just go write a song and go on tour and play his little concerts. But her job is the internet. Her job is people caring about what she has to say. Her job is her social media profiles. And so she doesn't have the same privilege of saying, oh, well, people are hating me for my personal life, but that's okay. I can just do my job. That is her job. And it's sort of unfair that it feels like people were maybe rooting for her downfall when from this story, I mean, I can't speak to sort of the previous allegations about her tweets and any slurs she said or anything, but from the things that we know, it seems like Zach is sort of just as guilty of the same alleged things about cheating, about whatever else that she is. It's just people don't like her. And so I don't know. It's a really interesting story, but I think within it, there's just a lot of very apparent double standards and what is actually a very clear and interesting depiction of what it means to be an influencer and getting your fame and sort of making your name and your job, your money from that, as opposed to a more traditional form of media. Because again, an actor can just go be in another film. A musician, a singer can just go make another album. A painter can paint, whatever. But an influencer, the moment the internet turns on them, yeah, maybe they still have the followers and so they still get the endorsement deals and they still whatever, but they have to be embroiled in and like steeping in that hate for their job. They can't escape it, you know, in the way that other people can escape it.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart way to look at this. And I feel like this is a situation where we have two people who need to take accountability for a few things, including the way they've hurt people in their own lives. And maybe this is that moment of reckoning. But I also think whatever happens next will be so predictable. Like, what do you think is going to happen next?
I think Zach Bryan will once again write an album. It'll have, at the very least, one song about her. He'll pop up at the 2026 American Country Music Awards of American Country with someone else. And then Brianna, well, she still has a job at Barstool Sports, right?
Right. And then she overlaps with someone else until she gets the Vogue wedding spread in 3 years. And I think the lesson here is don't date Zach Bryan.
Or Zach Brown.
Or Luke Bryan.
Or Luke Combs.
Anyone with a chicken forward song, let's put down the Spotify and let's pick up the artist's way. Okay, that's the show. We'll be back in your feed on Saturday, so definitely subscribe. That way, you never miss an episode. Leave us a rating and a review in Apple or Spotify, and tell your friends about us. You can follow us on Twitter at ICYMI_pod, and you can always drop us a note at ICYMI@slate.com.
ICYMI is produced by Se'era Spragley Ricks and Candice Lim, with production assistance from Alexandra Botti and Kat Holland. Daisy Rosario is our senior supervising producer, and Alicia Montgomery is Slate's VP of Audio. See you online.
Or at the ACMs. Whether you're listening to ICYMI at double speed or regular speed, you'd probably love to know how you can get more cash back on your credit card. Either way, we'll slow things down a bit so you don't miss anything. Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. That means with Discover, you could turn $150 cash back to $300. It pays to Discover. See terms at discover.com/credit card.